both players, they've played this matchup before. They know what the other one's on as well.
Yeah, it's not terribly difficult to determine which deck either of these players is on. You would have missed on Caleb Scherer last weekend.
So Jund, despite being a fair deck, is a deck that actually a lot of times has some decent combo matchups. Tarmogoyf's ability to add some quick pressure is pretty relevant here.
Yeah, the pressure is good. Discard into Liliana of the Veil can be a big deal in this matchup. Frequently with Storm, one discard spell doesn't cut it, at least against their good spells. But Liliana, keeping them at a low resource phase of the game, is actually really impactful in a matchup like this. As we go into sideboard games, or if Jadine produces that main deck Nile Spellbomb, that really turns off the Past in Flames lines as well.
Jadine's removal suite today here. We have 6 discard spells. We have 3 bolts, 2 fatal push, and 3 assassin's trophy.
Yeah, trophy kind of makes the deck worse in this matchup. There's nothing you want to target with that.
It is just a bad, yeah, it's a much worse version of fatal push.
Yeah, in a pinch, you'll want to destroy a mana creature, but it doesn't really do everything you want to do. You'd much rather have a push or a bolt.
I'll start with Inquisition of Kozilek from Jadine. Let's take a look at Caleb's hand. Goblin Electromancer, lands number 2 and 3, Remand and Past in Flames.
If Jadine already has a removal spell at the ready, then there's an argument for the Remand. The Electromancer is the best card in the hand, though.
Of course, can't take any of the other 3, so it will be between those 2. Remand can pose some difficulties, especially if she has a Liliana. She will take that, but I kind of like what you're saying, is that if she's taking this, it's likely there's removal set up for the Electromancer. And Caleb's going to pay some big respect to that. You notice he makes a second land drop, just doesn't play the Electromancer yet.
Right. He also drew Manamorphose for the turn, so that means if he just waits until he's able to make a 3rd land drop, he'll at least get to cast that for 1 mana.
And I like how that can punish Jadine's mana. It means on turn 3 she's really not as safe to tap out for something like Liliana. Looks like she will tap out for Tarmogoyf here. It's a 2-3. Can Caleb go off? We will see.
And she could wait on the Tarmogoyf, check to see where that Electromancer to show up, but the Storm deck also plays this game where you get to a point where you can cast Electromancer, immediately cast Manamorphose or some rituals, and it doesn't really matter if they have the kill spell for the Electromancer. You can come back from that.
Curious what Caleb picked up here. So he has set up Electromancer, Manamorphose. If he finds a ritual, he could try to set up some sort of mini combo, but he's just not going to feel like, doesn't feel like the chances are good enough.
He drew his signature Sunbleached Empty the Warrens. He has one in the main deck this week.
Okay.
So he's a little bit shy of going for that just yet.
And now Jadine gets to untap. We'll go for another Inquisition of Kozilek.
Well, that'll take the Electromancer.
Yeah.
Well, I guess actually the Manamorphose is interesting here. Actually, I do think that is the better card in the hand. I had forgotten that one was available.
So we could say, yeah, the 2 4-mana spells, especially with Empty the Warrens in his hand, leaving Manamorphose seems less good.
Yeah, just a turn of, if he draws a land Manamorphose, or even Manamorphose Ritual, Empty the Warrens, buys him a ton of time.
And she'll take the ritual here. So leaving with the 2-2, Empty the Warrens and Past in Flames, Jadine will attack. Will be for 3. She'll crack Verdant Catacombs. And no need for red mana just yet. Goes and finds Overgrown Tomb.
Possible that she just has some red source in the hand, and it has a hand that's light on red. She definitely wants this second black in case she ever wants to cast a Liliana.
Red cards in the deck. We have 3 Bloodbraid Elf, 2 Kolaghan's Command, and 3 Lightning Bolt. Some sideboard options as well.
Activation on Raging Ravine.
Yeah, one of the more important red cards, to be honest. Serum Visions from Caleb.
Yes, we led on Op, then cast Serum Visions, and he picked up a Desperate Ritual. So it was a situation where I suppose he doesn't have the Manamorphose, so he couldn't have chained anything on that turn. So he's setting up for the next turn.
Double top off the Serum Visions. Jadine swings in for 3 more, and I do like what she's doing here. It's a nice Tarmogoyf plus Disruption's a great place to be playing from. But you got to be concerned when your Storm opponent, especially off that hand, double tops on a Scry. There's reason for a lot of concern.
Yes. Yeah, I want to say I saw Gifts Ungiven floating around there.
Yeah. Jadine will make Raging Ravine, so you're right. There is that red source. First card Caleb kept on the top is Steam Vents. The next card on top is, as you mentioned, Gifts Ungiven. So his hand, Goblin Electromancer, Desperate Ritual at 2. Empty the Warrens and Past in Flames at 4. He's got that land, and then he has a Gifts on top. So there's no way to actually draw into the Gifts this turn. He doesn't actually have cantrips.
Right, there's no redraw. He's a little bit shy on doing too much with the Electromancer here.
Yeah, he's going to actually make Goblin Electromancer, make Desperate Ritual. Jadine going to fire off a Fatal Push in response.
Ooh, this is kind of what Caleb wanted now. He gets to play that land and make some goblins.
Yeah. So we have, this will be 8 goblins. Jadine helping him out with that Fatal Push. Caleb does have to shock for the play, so I believe that'll drop him to 12. And Jadine's side, she has 1 main deck copy of Maelstrom Pulse. Otherwise, it is going to be tough to get through 8 1/1s.
Right. It's not enough to just easily be lethal over 2 turns, but it does put significant pressure on Jadine. At the very least, I would be surprised to see Tarmogoyf attack on the following turn.
I assume she has a plan for this. She actually knew about the Empty the Warrens. So by adding that Fatal Push in, I mean, I guess she got to pick one way on that turn when the Desperate Ritual is on the stack. She can either push and add 2 more goblins to the board, or can hope Caleb doesn't have any more plays and will just make 6 instead.
It's a situation where if there's an additional rituals, she also knows about Past in Flames.
Yeah.
And things could have gotten really scary.
If she doesn't Fatal Push there and Caleb has something like Manamorphose, it's a huge punish.
Right.
3 mana. Are we looking at Maelstrom Pulse? No, we're looking at Liliana of the Veil. Plus, both players discard. For Jadine, it's a land. For Caleb, it's that Past in Flames. And she'll say go. But remember, Caleb topped both cards, and that's because this other card is Gifts Ungiven.
So he's already in a fine position with a ton of goblins.
Yeah. Do you go for the Liliana here, or do you just ignore it?
I think you just ignore that. It's worth 2 goblins over turns. I suppose, actually, the damage race is kind of set up where even if all of his goblins connect on 2 turns, which is not the kind of game we're playing, he can't deal lethal damage. So he has Gifts Ungiven as well. Past in Flames on the graveyard. It seems like he can win a long game storming, and with that being the case, then yeah, just going for Liliana this turn does make sense.
You don't want it to be plussing and taking cards in hand.
Right. But you want to be able to actually convert this Gifts Ungiven.
And it looks like he will send 6 at the Liliana, and that's
enough so Blocker plus Lightning Bolt won't save it.
Yeah, it's enough to make sure, just enough to make sure Liliana's gone. And Jadine blocks away 1 goblin, and Liliana is down. 2 cards on her side, 1 on Caleb's. His is Gifts Ungiven. So 2 cards on both sides, really. And Jadine will attack. We have a 5/6 now. Planeswalker was added, so a goblin will jump in the way. And a big one, Scavenging Ooze from Jadine. Let's take care of that Past in Flames immediately.
No hesitation on that. That Scavenging Ooze is a nice find. It also makes it so she'll be able to break up the best possible Gifts Ungivens here. So
yeah,
Scherer likely priced into a situation where he just has to find 4 cards that are more generically good. Probably one of those cantrip kind of setup where you find Seer Visions, Opt, and try to draw out of it.
Yeah, so with Jadine at 17, and the Empty the Warrens is the 1 main deck empty's already been used. How does Caleb rebuild? I feel like, does he have to get Scavenging Ooze off the table?
So he has main deck Unsubstantiate for that. He could try to draw into a mini Grave Shot. It's tough to beat the Scavenging Ooze from this position on such low resources with Jadine has so much life. You have to have a big Grave Shot turn to get out of this.
So he's going to go for basically a draw 2. He gets all 4 of his 1 mana cantrips. So Serum Visions, Opt, Sleight of Hand, and then Manamorphose, a 0 mana cantrip. And Jadine will give him the Opt and the Sleight of Hand.
Yeah, and he does have an additional copy of Past in Flames in his main deck.
Okay.
So he can play a game here where He spins the tires a little bit, tries to set up, finds unsubstantiate for Scavenging Ooze, and then hopefully has enough to start going off with Rituals in that second Pass in Flames. Though from so low resources, it's really hard to set that up.
Sleight of hand from Caleb. He did draw Grape Shot for the turn.
And kind of the thing about it is he has afforded himself a lot of time with these goblins to block, but it's also much more difficult to build towards a Pass in Flames turn with Jadine just activating that Scavenging Ooze 2 more times this turn and potentially 4 times on the following turn.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like he's going to have to get rid of the Ooze with that Grape Shot this turn.
And there's 2 creatures in graveyards currently. I believe he has 2 Electromancers, so the green mana can build it up to a 4.
What? We have 1. I don't know the second, if he has a second.
1 was tagged by an Inquisition, 1 by a Fatal Push.
I don't think the Inquisition never actually took the Electromancer.
Oh, right. It was just this 1 copy. Okay, so here's a second one.
Yeah, there's a second one. If Jadine had 3 mana, he would have to worry about removal, eat.
Right, and Jadine does not have any creatures in her graveyard, so just for 3 it'll be good.
Yeah, so this is a storm for 3 from the... There's 1 creature in the graveyard, so this will take care of Scavenging Ooze. So Jadine gets to activate twice before the Ooze goes away. Yeah, so he taps the 2 green mana, now selects... Looks like she'll go in and try to take the mana out of the graveyard, so Manamorphose and Desperate Ritual.
And seeing as she's already facing down this Grape Shot, taking out that Empty of the Warrens probably wouldn't do too much. From here, if Caleb can go off, he can kind of go off with either one. So reducing the Rituals diminishes the potential for a big turn.
And Caleb's going to race back. Here's a swing for 6, so Jadine goes on to 11 off that hit. Draws here. Her board is Tarmogoyf, Raging Ravine, and 2 cards in hand. Another card like Scavenging Ooze could do the trick here. Looks like she has Assassin's Trophy and a Liliana of the Veil.
Those 2 are both pretty weak, and she can't cast both with the lands available, just 2 black mana.
You're right.
Potential option is to fire up the Ravine and attack with Tarmogoyf Ravine. Though even if she does kind of turn the tides and apply a lot of pressure, Caleb can just start hanging back with the Goblin tokens.
Correction, it's not Trophy, it's Kolaghan's Command. Significantly better, actually. She'll take care of the Electromancer and buy back the Scavenging Ooze and attack. That's much stronger.
Yep, that's a good exchange. Caleb is too light on resources to go off on this turn without getting very fortunate anyway.
Yeah, shields are down, 6 goblins in play. So Caleb already can push for 5 damage. He'll cast that Opt. Can he find 6 more? Storms at 1.
2 lands have been picked up this turn for sure.
Yeah, and he's in the Moor's being picked up, and how about the rest of the deck? 2 lands in hand, and he's doesn't feel like he can get out from under that.
Yeah, the writing is kind of on the wall there. He has a hand that doesn't do anything. Scavenging Ooze can break up any of his meaningful graveyard interactions, which he already doesn't have set up. He's kind of got nothing going on there. Rituals have been exiled. He doesn't have an Electromancer. Doesn't have that many lands available. And Jadine has some pretty good attackers lined up already.
So game 1 goes to Jadine Klomparens. A pretty good back and forth between the 2, but Jund comes out on top. Do want to look at some sideboarding options then. One of the advantages to Jund here is that Jadine gets to do things like play 3 Scavenging Ooze main, have this incidental graveyard hate in the main. She also has brought a Nile Spellbomb to put in the main, and I assume there's going to be more graveyard hate in the sideboard.
Yeah, there's a pretty good mix actually. For her sideboard, we have 3 Fulminator Mage, 2 Anger of the Gods, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Kitchen Finks, a Fatal Push, a Nile Spellbomb, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Kalitas Trader of Get, a Collective Brutality, and a Duress. So I like these additional discard effects. Duress, Collective Brutality can clear out some of the more impactful spells. Surgical Extraction is really good. You can go for a Grape Shot. If you draw both, you can get Grape Shot and Empty if they show up in the graveyard. And then the extra graveyard hate in Nihil Spellbomb, Grafdigger's Cage, really powerful. There's an argument to bring in another or even both answers to Empty the Warrens and these Anger of the Gods as well.
That makes sense. Yeah, Anger of the Gods actually just seems like a cleaner card in the matchup than something like... Well, I was going to say that than something like Maelstrom Pulse, though double red isn't free.
Yeah, the cards are also extremely similar. The one difference is Anger would also kill Baral or Goblin Electromancer.
Right. Now on Caleb's side, 4 pieces of the puzzle. We see him use these in most of his fair deck matchups.
Yes.
Other cards, 3 Lightning Bolt. He has none in the main today. 2 Abrade, a second and third copy of Empty the Warrens, a Echoing Truth, Dismember, Wipe Away, and then 1 Ignite Memories as an additional Storm Win Con.
Yeah, I heard Caleb and Paul talking about Ignite Memories as a way to beat the decks that are heavy on Surgical Extraction.
Okay.
I think particularly matchups like Azorius Control and Jeskai, where you're likely to hit a bunch of 4 and 5 mana spells, is where they want to be with that. And if you match up like Jund, the 4 pieces of the puzzle are excellent. And I would expect some answers to Scavenging Ooze. There's windows where you can Lightning Bolt it, and then your bounce effects, Echoing Truth, Wipe Away. Those will help against any secondary graveyard effect you expect.
Yeah, I like what the bind that Jund has Caleb in, though. You board in cards like Wipe Away and Echoing Truth. They do answer Jund's cards, but the more you board in card disadvantage like that, you know, Jund's pretty fine with that idea.
Yeah, it makes it a little bit easier to break things up with discard spells, and that's why you're going to see this piece of the puzzle extra Empty the Warrens plan.
Yeah.
If he can go off for 6 goblins, he usually will in this matchup.
Jadine Klomparens had an invitational top 8. She was a runner-up a couple seasons ago to Liam Lonergan. 20-year-old from New Britain, Connecticut, now living in the Roanoke area. Does have the invitational top 8 and 4 open top 8s on top of that. And basically a lock to be playing Tarmogoyf and Thoughtseize.
Yeah, does not generally deviate from that strategy. It's written some really great stuff for StarCityGames.com, also about Golgarian Standard, which is more or less the deck to beat right now. The format's pretty diverse, but Golgari seems to be the front runner.
Yeah, a lot of the standard decks right now kind of following, really having been mixed up from Guilds of Ravnica.
Yeah, big rotation
yeah.
generally has that kind of effect. But yeah, as you mentioned there, you have this kind of setup where you have 5 guilds represented in a gold color set and 5 that aren't.
Yeah. Yeah, our top decks right now, you're seeing like Boros Angels, Black, Golgari midrange. Celestia Tokens was a big breakout week 1. It hasn't really stuck around and had the staying power that some of the other guilds have had.
Yeah, the deck has some notable weaknesses to sweepers that really weren't present on week 1, and I think the format has really caught up to that.
Looks like Jadine's going to throw the hand back. So, starting next month, speaking of the Guilds of Ravnica, if you haven't heard about the guild kits released here, these are different decks featuring Guilds of Ravnica, also with some set deck lists. You have one for the first 5 guilds. They don't just include Guilds of Ravnica cards, though. They also include cards from all previous Ravnicas as well. 5 of them for the first 5 guilds. Currently are available for pre-order on StarCityGames.com, and they will ship just next week, November 2nd.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool exercise, fun decks to just pick up and play against each other. As you can see from the legends representing on the front of the box, you have some older options and some of the newer printings as well from Guilds of Ravnica.
And the very first Aurelia?
Yeah. And you saw Tristani from Return to Ravnica as well.
Turn 1, Inquisition of Kozilek. Jadine has kept on 6. See 2 pieces of the puzzle. Pyretic Ritual, Manamorphose, and Dismember. I'm a little surprised to see the Dismember in here. But it's probably for Scavenging Ooze, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's one that you generally just have to get off the table. And in a pinch, I assume you target Tarmogoyf sometimes.
Well, Jadine will take 1 piece of the puzzle. We'll see whether or not Caleb can make it to 3 mana. He will both need the 3rd land and need Jadine to not have another discard spell.
Right. The main deck certainly has them. There's more coming in off the sideboard. Ooh.
Nile Spellbombs to play. Does Caleb hit the land? To be continued, Manamorphose. Can he hit the land? He does. Steam Vents. He's actually go for a second Manamorphose here. Maybe build a small combo turn.
Yeah, he found the land, so now he already has a Ritual in hand. He could just have an Empty the Warrens turn here.
I think that's what we're doing. You're absolutely right. Pyretic Ritual up to 3 mana. And yeah, 3 spells. Let's make it 4. Let's make it 8 goblins. Here's Empty the Warrens.
Yeah, especially in the face of this Nile Spellbomb, there's a lot of pressure on Caleb to just do something with the cards in hand, and this is certainly something.
And I love this. Caleb's hand remaining is a Lightning Bolt and a Pieces of the Puzzle, and if he's just going to try to do this chip shot damage, I'm all about this.
Yeah. I mean, these goblins connect 2 times. That's 16 damage. Lightning Bolt finishes from there. Jadine has to do something.
Yeah, and, you know, Pieces can find you another Bolt, maybe a Grape Shot, just like a couple more points of damage.
Right. A lot of pressure on Jadine to have either the main deck Maelstrom Pulse or some of those sideboard Anger of the Gods here.
Yeah, we'll see if she can here on the 3rd turn. Fetch land.
It's a quick fetch.
Yeah, feels like there's something to clean this up. Fetch and a shock for 2nd red. Yeah.
Yeah, shocking for 2nd red. I think that tells you something.
And the 3 damage to each goblin. Jadine is at the ready with an answer. Actually ends up being a 2-for-1. Caleb having to spend 2 cards to make that those goblins.
I like destroying 8 creatures and it being a 2-for-1.
John does great. Here's Pieces of the Puzzle. Caleb going to rebuild. 5 cards. He has his choice of blue cantrips.
Yeah, the full range there. Opt and Serum Visions are both better than Sleight of Hand, and you see him make that decision.
Now that'll go ahead and go for the Serum Visions. Now, is there any reason for Jadine on the time? She has a Nile Spellbomb here. Of course, like, you can wait until he has a Past in Flames on the stack to crack it. Is there any reason for her to go for it any sooner than that?
If she's not applying pressure, at some point she'll just want to draw a card. Though in general, leaving it up is going to behoove her.
Liliana the Veil and a plus from Jadine. Plays a Swamp, so she can activate that Spell Bomb. 1 card left in her hand, looks like 4 in Caleb's.
Caleb picked up an Abrade so he can force the action on that Nile Spellbomb, but specifically with Jadine playing that Swamp there, that makes that not very appealing on this turn.
Liliana up to 5. Caleb will opt in response. Yeah, Lightning Bolt and Abrade both in Caleb's hand.
Yeah, so he's responding with the opt in case he bottoms something and then draws something he wants to discard.
Yeah, he did scry to the bottom and then drew Manamorphose.
Yeah, so he bottomed, but I think he's pretty content to have Manamorphose here, though it's kind of true of most of his hand.
Discards an Unsubstantiate. Jadine plays Raging Ravine and passes. Now empty-handed. And here's the play you're talking about. Abrade to force action on Nile Spellbomb. So in response, Jadine will use it, pay black to draw a card. Now's on end step, so now Caleb has his chance. See what he can make of it. Draws Pyretic Ritual, so he's going to need some help. He'll start with Manamorphose. That's going to find him Serum Visions. We're still live.
Ish.
Yeah.
we're casting spells.
We're doing things, yeah. It's got a red floating. That first Manamorphose was just keeping blue-red as blue-red.
Yeah, kind of the goal for this turn is to get a Grape Shot big enough to take down the Liliana.
Well, he does have a Grape Shot in these top 2.
Or if he can go big enough, maybe this is a turn where he can find 2 Grape Shots and go for lethal. He does have 3 cards in hand.
So he'd have to have 1 for 7 and 1 for 8. He double topped here, so maybe you're right, Ryan. Manamorphose is spell 3. Serum Visions is spell 4. Okay, it looks like we're building up to just enough to remove Liliana. 2 Pyretic Rituals. He doesn't want either of those.
Yeah, I don't know that he has the mana to go for 2 Grape Shots in this turn, so he does clean up the Liliana anyway.
Yep, storms to 5, sends all copies at Liliana, and now Raging Ravine will start to mix it up. 4 damage in, Caleb to 14.
Caleb has a fine graveyard now, though. He'll need a little bit more mana if we're talking about things like building up to Past in Flames, but Some good leftovers, even though he has been hit by a Nile Spellbomb already.
Drew empty the Warrens. So since Raging Ravine got in there, the Lightning Bolt in his hand can't really answer it. He will bolt upstairs, storm to 1. Pyretic Ritual, storm to 2, and it looks like empty for 6. 6 goblins, Jadine's at 11. No cards in Caleb's hand.
Raging Ravine is not looking like such a great attacker anymore.
Jadine will pass. I suppose you can activate it as a blocker. And Jadine might do just that.
Yeah, it's a situation where the goblins are lethal in 2 and the Ravine is not, so the attack would have been pretty poor.
1 goblin is blocked by Ravine. 5 in, Jadine goes to 6. Caleb says go. I believe he picked up Past in Flames.
It's a solid draw. It doesn't do anything just yet. It's a nice insurance policy.
You know what I like about it? With 1 land drop, it's a 5-mana Lightning Bolt, and I'm pretty into that here.
Yeah.
Like, it's dorky, but hey, I think it's lethal. And there's the land. This is 3 damage off the goblins, and then I think he's got the 5-mana Bolt.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Find something really satisfying about the Stormwinds where they just, like, you know, nickel and dime their way to try to get their opponent to 0. Like, oh, okay, here's 3 more, lose 2 more creatures.
Yeah. It's like casting Recoup.
Well, Caleb plays the 5th land and passes, so maybe that card's not a Past in Flames.
Might also be playing around, I don't know, Surgical Extraction.
Sure. Scavenging Ooze for Jadine. Well, I hope the card's not Past in Flames. Because now it's not going to work.
Is there anything in the way? So there's a Dark Confidant in the graveyard. Is there any second creature available? The 1 life does matter.
Yeah, swing for 3. She's going to activate Raging Ravine. Block, block. She takes 1, goes to 2, but that Ravine can make green mana, so she's kind of at 3. Here's Opt, storms at 1.
Any lightning bolts?
Because that green mana's up, Grape Shot's no good here.
Any second Opt into Grape Shot?
That'll do. So Opt to the bottom. Caleb draws. Lightning Bolt, and he finds it. They're going to game 3.
That was a nice one.
Yeah, close there, and you can see it kind of on Caleb's face. If that Opt Scry to the bottom misses, he may be losing this match.
Yeah.
I like Jun's turnaround time is pretty good.
Especially because the goblins all had to attack themselves to death.
Yeah.
They weren't available to block anymore.
Close stuff here. Once we head toward a 3rd game. Actually, Jadine revisiting her sideboard, it looks like, for that game to double check on some things. In this kind of matchup, are there cards out of Jun that you feel like are play draw on whether or not she'll want them?
It's possible. Stuff like 3 and 4 mana effects, your Lilianas, even Bloodbraid Elf. They're pretty inefficient.
She's got like things like Collective Brutality, discard that might be good on the play, probably not good on the draw. Or it might just be good on both.
Given the texture of the matchup, I think you just always want that card. You're still ahead of pieces of the puzzle, even on the draw.
Jadine does, and you mentioned Surgical Extraction in the last game. She does have 2 copies of Surgical Extraction in her list.
There would have been some opportune times. I suppose once the Spell Bomb went off, she didn't have a way to get rid of Empty the Warrens, so it would have been tough to leverage that one. Had she drawn it before Spell Bombing and just, you know, gotten the empties out, that would have been worth something.
Signing game here, Jadine going to 6.
I've played a lot of these disruptive decks against Storm. When you mulligan to 6 and they keep on 7, it feels pretty bad. She does have some highly impactful sideboard cards.
Game 1, it feels like this is less, it's okay when you're mulliganing to 6, but once they're on these pieces of the puzzle style plan, these mulligans do feel pretty bad.
Yeah, they just have a game plan that generates card advantage now. And he also has access to 3 Empty the Warrens in the sideboard games, so he can go off from not that many resources.
A little bit of a fumble on the deck. JD saying, hey, we should fix that. And we will.
Might be a question of if that card was tipped so that Caleb could see it.
Yeah, do we need to reshuffle here? Just, no, it's fine. We'll just stack it back up. And we have a keep on 6. Game number 3 here. Jadine starting on Wooded Foothills. No discard spell.
Well, I think we saw the old scry to the top with my first land being a fetch land.
Okay, right.
There.
Yeah, that always feels weird with the scry rule on mulligans when you're playing a fetch land format. When you're on the play, there's this tension when you see a card you like.
I've played some games where I keep a 1-lander on 6, and I have a 1-mana spell I want to cast, but I scry a land to the top, so I just pass on the first turn.
Yeah. Yeah, because you have to.
Yeah, you got to keep that land on top.
Serum Visions from Caleb. Double scry to the bottom from Caleb, so he's looking for some help. We'll see if we get a look at the hand. Maybe figure out what's going on there.
Seems to be a discard spell available.
Yeah. Inquisition will be the play from Jadine. Caleb has a Lightning Bolt. 1 more land, it's an island. He has 3 rituals, so he has Manamorphose, Pyretic Ritual, and Desperate Ritual.
This is a scary hand.
Yeah, and then Serum Visions and pieces of the puzzle. There's no clear way to attack this one.
So the card that's likely to be worth the most here is pieces of the puzzle.
Right.
It does not take very much. Caleb just has to find Empty the Warrens with this hand.
Yeah.
And then he has a very explosive turn ahead of him. And there's so many draws that make it so you can't break up that in any way. It's just a bunch of rituals. Extra land drops make it easy. Where the pieces is probably the only card you can take out of that hand.
Serum Visions will draw Caleb the 3rd land. On top he has land 4 and a sleight of hand. To see if he wants either of those. He does not. And then says go. Leaving up that opt.
He's kind of on empty or bust as far as cards that he's looking for. He'd probably keep stuff like more pieces of the puzzle if he had gifts ungiven.
Yeah.
He has enough rituals where finding Past in Flames could actually be a huge deal.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Past in Flames, right, because he's on Desperate Ritual, Pyretic Ritual, Manamorphose. So, yeah, Past in Flames is probably good here. It is a little more... there's more tension in it, certainly. Jadine can play cards like Surgical Extraction, Scavenging Ooze.
Right. If he were to set up to get a mana creature and Past in Flames, clearly that would put him off to the races.
Yeah.
He'd still have the tension with Graveyard Hate, but he hasn't seen any just yet.
That just feels like, and I think that's why it goes toward empty, a tough thing to assemble against Jund. Because first, you need your mana creature to live. That's a big ask against Jund. Then you need them to not have Graveyard Hate. All of these things can happen, but they all need to happen, and that's a lot.
Right. Nice turn for Jadine. She gets Liliana online. This cuts the amount of time that Caleb has to find Empty the Warrens, because she's really going to work on the hand now.
Pluses it. Caleb opts, and he discards Pyretic Ritual. This is the turn she needs to avoid. He's got a pretty good hand.
Some Manamorphoses to redraw.
Yeah. He's hoping to find some sort of action. Here's Manamorphose.
Whole bunch of rituals.
Manamorphose. If he can find anything, and I don't think he did. Tap, land, and pass. Yeah, his hand is Pyretic Ritual, Desperate Ritual, Lightning Bolt. If he had found Past in Flames or Empty the Warrens, he would be good to go. But I think, Jadine dodged this, and now she's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, he might even be doing fine if he drew pieces of the puzzle. That has a pretty high chance of converting into something powerful.
Absolutely. Jadine keeps going to work. A plus. She'll discard Fatal Push. Caleb will discard a land. Here's Tarmogoyf and a pass. She doesn't have that much interaction, just kind of hoping that Caleb misses things.
He's still in territory where finding empty this turn will be hugely impactful, though on the following turn, that Liliana goes up to 6. Those goblins start looking a lot worse.
Another land from Caleb. That's no good. Is he even going to play it?
Yeah, it just has rituals. Doesn't have redraws anymore.
And I think he's going to hang on to the land, likely to discard to Liliana.
Yeah, I want to stay in a situation where you can make as many goblins off of a Past in Flames as possible. With this many rituals, he might even have some wild turns where he draws pieces of the puzzle and can redraw enough times.
Jadine just kind of doing the Junda plan here. Last card is another Tarmogoyf. Now she's free to plus the Liliana. And that's what she will do. Gets another card out of Caleb's hand. It's going to be the land. Crashes in for 3, Caleb to 17.
Jadine played into Unsubstantiate a little bit by plussing the Liliana and then attacking with the Tarmogoyf. If Caleb bounced the Tarmogoyf, she'd have to discard it. But I think part of why you see that line is that she would rather the Tarmogoyf be unsubstantiated than the Liliana.
And Caleb decides to use that Lightning Bolt to keep Liliana off ultimate. Draws for the turn, it is pieces of the puzzle. It's one of the draws you were looking for.
I guess it would have to be Echoing Truth or Wipe Away, but that was the concept, bouncing permanent.
Well, he'll get 2 cards now. Still has to feed the Liliana. The top 5 gives him some great options, though. 5, actually. He can have Serum Visions, Opt, Pieces of the Puzzle, Unsubstantiate, and Manamorphose.
I'm pretty into Pieces Manamorphose.
Yeah, so is Caleb.
This is like the 2 best cards in his deck.
Yeah. Well, the idea is, right, he still needs one of those payoffs, and none of them are that.
Right.
Now, he doesn't have that many turns to work with. Facing down 2 Tarmogoyfs. Liliana will plus, likely going to get a Pyretic Ritual from Caleb.
Though he hasn't made land drops because he's been discarding them to the Liliana, so he won't have that much mana to work with this turn.
Yeah, his hand is 2 Desperate Rituals, Manamorphose, and Pieces of the Puzzle.
He has enough mana where if he finds empty, he can still make a lot of goblins.
Yeah, Caleb hits down to 11 that turn. He's going to cast Pieces. He's taking 1 more hit. Gifts Ungiven, Sleight of Hand, 2 lands, and Opt. So still no payoff card. He's gone through so much of his deck.
Yeah, don't think he has the mana for Gifts Ungiven, and he's going to agree there.
Yeah, because he has to go off next turn.
Right.
Yeah, so take the 2 1-mana cantrips and pass. He's going to have to lose one of these cards to Liliana, and then he'll have to assemble a combo. And because of what you were saying about those lands, I'm not sure that Caleb can actually discard either of those Desperate Rituals to this Liliana. He may have to bin a cantrip.
Right. He found 2 cantrips there. So he's pretty capable of doing that. He's also kind of light on mana, so the extra cantrips don't help him too much.
Yeah.
And with the discarding lands, it's not like he's misplaying. It's just that this is what the Liliana does to the matchup.
Have to agree. And here is Liliana. Caleb discards the Opt. He's tacked down to 5, and here's the turn. Can he win this one? Draw is empty the Warrens. We are in business.
All right.
And Caleb's got some extra mana to work with, so let's start up a storm. Here is Sleight of Hand to start. It's got 2 land, a land and a spell. It keeps the land, but it is Steam Vents. This will put him down to 3. Gotta be a little careful there. Does he want to keep going?
Yeah, so he has to kind of weigh. Does he want to make enough goblins to find a couple turns to try to set up for a bigger combo?
Sure.
He does have a good amount of resources in hand, and the way he's taking his lands, it feels like that is the route that he's going.
Yeah, I mean, this plane is pretty locked into his play. Sleight of Hand into Desperate Ritual, into Desperate Ritual. So he has 4 red mana floating. He's played 2 cantrips. Storm's at 4. We'll see if he wants to throw a Manamorphose into there as well. He probably does.
Yeah, it seems like he may as well.
Storm's at 5, 2 red, 2 blue. Likely the next card just going to be that Empty the Warrens.
Yeah, even if he draws a ritual, It's probably just a fine spot to make goblins.
Yeah, and he does not. He draws a land. So here are 12 goblins, and that's all Caleb's got. Remaining 2 cards are lands. Did not have to shock for Steam Vents. That second sleight of hand found Shivan Reef, so he's actually managed to stay at 5.
Means he won't be able to just get lightning bolted on this turn.
And now he's hoping to dodge Anger of the Gods, Maelstrom Pulse. And Jadine draws. Didn't slam it on the table, so I think we're still playing.
Probably would have been quick with any of those sweeper effects.
Wooded Foothills, plus by Liliana. She'll say go. 12 goblins are there in play.
And the Liliana is at 6, which is threatening its ultimate on the following turn, which would kill approximately half the goblins.
This is actually interesting. 12 goblins feels like a lot, and it is, but this is a little tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's an argument to point some of these at Liliana.
Yeah. Like,
So,
well,
like,
3,
yeah,
right?
You could aim 3 at the Liliana. That way you guarantee you get 1 hit in, so you don't get -6 next turn. Send enough. You want to leave 2 or 3 back.
Yeah.
Because the Tarmogoyfs... one Tarmogoyf's not lethal, but Tarmogoyf, Lightning Bolt, Tarmogoyf, Collective Brutality is lethal.
But if you leave too many back, then you're just...
You gotta force damage.
Yeah.
It's a tough spot.
Okay. We'll see how Caleb wants to do this. I don't know that he... It feels like he can't turn these 12 goblins into lethal. Like, he's still... Like, this is buying time.
Yeah, because he has to send some at the Liliana, that really impacts the amount of pressure he's able to apply here.
Yeah, if Liliana wasn't on the board, he could probably do something like send 9 this turn, leave 3 back, deal 7, then he'd have 10 next turn, and then he could swing them all, and then that'd be 8, and then he would do it.
Yeah, or even if he just drew into this 1 turn earlier. The
Yeah.
Liliana on 5 wouldn't be a problem.
What an interesting attack here for Caleb. So it looks like we have 3 at Liliana, we have 7 at Jadine, and we have 2 holding back.
And once there's 3 at Liliana, I would expect that Jadine just blocks goblins that are going at her, less Liliana takes 3. The blocking the two of the goblins at Liliana kind of gets you into a position where you can force similar attacks on the following turn, but I think she takes a little bit too much damage.
Determine those are the attacks. So 3 at the Planeswalker, 7 upstairs. And if I'm in Jadine's side, you let Lily take 3 then, right?
Right. Yeah, because there's so much damage, you just take too much damage, you go to too low life total if you block 2 on the Liliana.
So Jadine will go to 9. That means this is not enough. So Caleb has 10 tokens left, so he's threatening only 8 on the next attack. We'll see whether Jadine wants to plus or minus the Liliana.
There's so many goblins where she'll have to draw a sweeper.
Yeah, she minuses Caleb. She's only getting rid of 2 a turn. There's still 10 left. Minus puts it to 9. She takes 7 on the next swing. You're right. The minus doesn't really play.
Right.
Jadine has drawn lands for a good number of turns here.
And none of them are Raging Ravine.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't really be a difference maker at this stage in the game.
Well, it would have been interesting, right? Because then Caleb would have had to have left a 3rd goblin back. Like, each creature counts multiple times here.
Yeah, it would change things some. It would have changed things a lot more in a position where previously she was actually able to attack.
Yeah. A 3rd Tarmogoyf, and she will plus Liliana. Says go. 10 creatures for Caleb. So Jean can block 3. If they all attack, they can't. I mean, they can't all attack still, right? It's.
Yeah, those Tarmogoyfs are. Anything like a lightning bolt or brutality becomes lethal with them.
pieces of the puzzle. Now, if Caleb finds Echoing Truth, this is pretty easy.
Yeah.
Dismember.
He can afford to cast that.
A Braid. That actually... Does that still play here? I think the Tarmogoyfs are just 3/4s.
Yeah, I mean, they are not individually lethal.
So he takes a Braid and Grape Shot. So if we have Grape Shot, it looks like 2 damage. Upstairs. Oh, yeah, and then there's a swing. 2 upstairs and a swing, and 7 get through.
Yeah,
that's going to be lethal.
Just enough goblins.
And Caleb Scherer, 2-1, is going to take a match. A closely contested game 2 and 3.